The Dodgers won the series, but there was a lot more going on around the team that wasn't as fun. We'll get into the big wins. We'll get into what could happen down the line with some players, and we'll get into whatever else comes our way. So let's get locked on Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, Dodger fans. Welcome to Locked On Dodgers. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 local sports daily podcast network. Locked On, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Dodgers is brought to you by Tax Network USA. Did you know that it's never too late to resolve your tax issues with the IRS? Don't wait. Reduce your tax debt and get help from a team of licensed tax professionals. Call 1-800-549-1000 or visit tnusa.com/lockedon. This is the daily podcast covering the Los Angeles Dodgers, bringing you the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue. You can find us wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube. All you got to do is search for Locked On Dodgers. You can become an everydayer by listening or watching every day, which can be made easier by subscribing and being notified when our episodes are ready or when we're going live on YouTube like we are here on Sunday night. If this is your first time listening or watching, welcome. My name is Vince Samperio, joined by my co-host, Jeff Snyder. Jeff and I are lifelong Dodger fans that have covered the team in a few different ways over the past 10 years. We've written about the team. We have talked about the team, obviously, doing this podcast and our previous podcast. And, we've analyzed the team in a lot of different ways and watched a lot of Dodger baseball. And we're here to hopefully just make everyone better Dodger fans in the process, even ourselves sometimes. So let's talk Dodgers. The Dodgers, if you've been a longtime listener of this pod, you know that we've talked about the best way to win a 3-game series and the worst way to win a 3-game series. And while it's always positive to win a series, the least positive way to win that series is the way the Dodgers did it, which is to win the first two and then not complete the sweep in game 3. But all in all, Jeff, based on how the Dodgers came off losing back-to-back series against division rivals, the Brewers coming into town right on the heels of the Dodgers for the second spot and potential time off in October, the Dodgers took the first two, and you go out with the rookie on Sunday and try to get that last win. Couldn't quite do it, but still, all in all, good weekend.
Yeah, if anything, this kind of underscores why it's so hard to sweep a series, because you kind of need a blowout win in there if you're going to try to sweep a series. Because the fact is, the Dodgers came into Sunday's game with a guy making his major league debut on the mound. That's already has you a little bit behind the 8 ball. And then you throw in the fact that Evan Phillips, Blake Treinen, and Daniel Hudson had all pitched each of the last 2 days, which meant all 3 of them were, if not unavailable, at least being steered around. And so basically they came into the game knowing, okay, today it's Justin Wrobleski and Ryan Yarbrough and Johan Ramirez and people like that. And basically the Dodgers' hope was maybe the offense can treat Dallas Keuchel like he's Dallas Keuchel. Unfortunately, Keuchel was pretty good at hitting the edge of the zone, walked a bunch of dudes, but basically kept the ball out of the hitting areas enough that the Dodgers weren't able to capitalize on having a lot of traffic on the bases. I mean, Dallas Keuchel won a Cy Young Award. That was 8,000 years ago now. 9 years ago? He knows how to pitch. His stuff isn't good anymore. He's not a good pitcher anymore, but he showed how when he's on, he can still be a solid pitcher. Didn't even get a ton of help from the umpire. Definitely the umpire took 1 run off the board, but not, it was just a well-pitched game by Keuchel. And the Dodgers, if it had been a must-win game, yeah, those guys who had pitched the last 2 days would have been available and Wrobleski wouldn't have been starting and they would have, things would have been different. But so that was kind of my big takeaway from Sunday was it's really hard to sweep a series no matter who you're playing against.
Yeah, and especially against a team like the Brewers, who are a good team overall. And, the games on Friday and Saturday were really good games in different ways. The Dodgers, let's talk about Will Smith. Will Smith, as a guy that had been struggling and then, had kind of turned the corner a little bit, not quite fully. And then he goes off on Friday, has the 3 home runs, picks it up the next day in his 4th straight at bat with a home run. And is someone that is going to matter right now, especially after the news of Max Muncy being shut down again, and us waiting even more for the deadline and something to come our way. But for Will Smith to get back into the swing of things, no pun intended, is really going to help out the Dodgers, especially with the lineup the way it is right now.
Yeah, absolutely. The 4 home runs, also a fly out to the warning track, a line drive that Christian Yelich made a sliding catch on. I mean, Will Smith was hitting the ball hard all weekend long, especially those first 2 games. And that's absolutely great news. I thought it was interesting. This might be the first time all season that Smith didn't sit one or the other of a night game followed by a day game. Usually he sits the Sunday day game. A couple times they've had him sit the Saturday night game so he could play the Sunday day game. This is the first time I can think of, I'd have to look for sure, but first time I can think of that he's played both Saturday night and Sunday day, which, part of that is just, well, they had the day off, they have a day off on Monday. They've had enough days off lately. He's had plenty of days off. And the fact is the contrast between him and Austin Barnes at the bat has maybe never been more stark than it is right now.
Yeah, then you throw the defense, specifically throwing on top of that, and you get a one, probably, I gotta imagine, the biggest gap between starting catcher and backup catcher in the league. I would imagine. I feel confident in saying that because Will Smith is one of the top 2-3 catchers in the league, and Austin Barnes is a little bit further down the road than that. But the rest of the weekend, some timely hitting, some. Miguel Vargas coming through and breaking the tie on Saturday, Shohei Ohtani adding the extra run after that. And, it was a series that kind of was determined by some home runs. And as we've talked about with the Dodgers before, like, reliance on home run doesn't matter too much if you're hitting home runs. And the Dodgers were hitting home runs. And, that's we've talked about in the playoffs, and the Brewers are a potential team that you're going to play in the playoffs. Home runs and reliance on them isn't that bad in October because that's a guaranteed run. Hitting 2, 3, 4 hits in a row against some of the pitchers you're going to face, not as common. So
that's a controversial opinion I've learned that not everybody agrees with us on. But yeah, I do think your chances of hitting a home run against a very good pitcher are a lot higher than your chances of getting 4 straight hits or whatever it is. So, but yeah, I also think it's overblown. I think the Dodgers percentage of runs scored on home runs doesn't mean that much to me because especially like a 3-run homer. Okay. If he hits it slightly less hard, it's a 2-run double. Like solo homers, I'll give you that. If all their runs are coming on solo homers, that's an issue. But hitting 2-run, 3-run grand slams, that just means you're hitting the ball hard with runners on base. And that's what you want to do. Sometimes it'll turn into multi-run homers. Sometimes it'll be, sometimes it'll be a fly out, unfortunately, but sometimes it'll be a 2-run double. That's all you can really do in those situations. Go up there and try to hit the ball hard.
Yeah, we'll talk about the starting pitching real quick here. You had Glasnow and you had Paxton, and then we had Wrobleski in his first outing. I feel like Paxton, there's not much to say anytime out. He's going to be good sometimes. He's going to have good numbers, but get lucky sometimes. He's going to be okay sometimes. He's going to be bad sometimes. And then the rare occasion like his start before this, which is really, really bad. But Glasnow, ran into some trouble again, gave up the big grand slam. Now a couple starts in a row where he hasn't quite had it. And do we any stock into maybe a little bit of fatigue for him?
It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, it's July. It's a long baseball season. He isn't used to playing a full baseball season. And so, yeah, there might be a little bit of fatigue. We're going to talk a little bit later about him being named to the All-Star team. I wouldn't have been heartbroken if he hadn't been. Give him a little bit more of a break. But, throwing an inning on a day that he would have been throwing a bullpen session isn't the end of the world anyway. But yeah, a little bit of fatigue might be the thing. The fact is he looked really, really good in the other innings in that game. Like, I don't think he allowed a base runner in any other inning other than the inning he allowed 5 runs. So it was kind of a Jekyll and Hyde performance from him within that game. And I noticed even in that inning, after the grand slam, it looked like he got kind of mad and he struck out the next 2 guys and just kind of like, I'm not going to predict this. It's way too bold a prediction, but it wouldn't surprise me if that inning ends up being kind of a turning point for him where it's like he takes it to the next level, steps it up a notch, because it does seem like that kind of knocked some sense into him, made him angry, and showed him what he needed to do a little bit.
Just a matter of locking in. And, sometimes it can be as simple as fatigue, it can be as simple as, we're getting into July. Almost anywhere you play, it's going to be a little bit warmer than it has been in the past. And sometimes it's just a bad inning. And the fastball probably wasn't supposed to be letter high to Reese Hoskins, I would imagine. So, you miss your spot, and especially after coming off some walks and, loading the bases, not the best way to look. But we'll talk about Wrobleski next. Just the excitement to, hey, this guy got called up, and someone we haven't really talked about as a potential arm for the Dodgers, and kind of what he looked like, and if we expect to see him again. So make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports, and I can assure you that it is the easiest and it is the most exciting way. I am someone that is on Prize Picks almost every day. Nothing too crazy, but it's simple. All you got to do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Had you put the Will Smith any more pretty much on Friday, whether it was hits, whether it was runs, whether it was RBI, whether it was even home run. If you had to pick more on any of that, and then you had picked something else, whether it was Ohtani to not do anything, maybe you could have went less specifically for Friday. But either way, it's easy. You pick more, you pick less, and you get in on the action with Prize Picks and the Prize Picks community. And all you got to do to check out Prize Picks is download the Prize Picks app today. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That means if you put in $100, they'll give you $100 in credit beyond that to, increase your chances of making those stat projections and turning maybe $10 into $1,000. So that's the Prize Picks app. Go to use the code LOCKEDONMLB and you'll get a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Today's episode of Today's episode of Locked On Dodgers is brought to you by Tax Network USA. Here on Locked On Dodgers, we pride ourselves on getting you the latest news for your team, whether it's trade season coming up, whether it's breaking news, whether it's Justin Wrobleski getting called up and us talking about that. We're here for you year round. You know what else is year round? Collection season. And just because the tax season is over doesn't mean the IRS will stop coming after you for unified unfiled taxes. The IRS can garnish your wages, levy your bank accounts, and even seize your property. Don't let the IRS target you. Let the licensed professionals and tax experts at Tax Network USA go to bat for you. Realistically, most of us are not tax experts, so why would you try to handle everything yourself? If you don't know what's going on, or if you already messed up, or if you just have some questions, they have 14 years of experience and an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau. Tax Network USA has saved their clients over $1 billion in tax debt. So go check out Tax Network USA at tnusa.com/lockedon or by calling 1-800-549-1000. Make sure to mention Locked On Dodgers at checkout and you'll receive a $250 discount off their services. I want to thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day. Make sure to find us wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. Make sure to check us out every Monday through Friday for about 30 minutes. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell any coworkers or any people in your life that are Dodger fans. And remember, if you're already on YouTube, you can check out Locked On Sports Today or Locked On Sports Los Angeles, 24/7 streaming channels from the Locked On Podcast Network, bringing you the biggest news and stories from the sports world and the LA sports world. Locked On Dodgers Postcast is available on the Locked On Sports Los Angeles YouTube channel live after most Dodger games and on our audio feed. All right, Jeff, let's talk about Justin Wrobleski. He gets called up, and a name that we've maybe mentioned before on the podcast. I know a name you've probably mentioned on Twitter as well in the past. And, a guy that's really started to climb the ranks and looked like someone that could help out later in the season, maybe more in a relief role. Maybe some of us had thought, and the Dodgers needed a starter, and they called him up. And while he wasn't as successful as he could have been, I think there was some signs there that with a little bit more comfort and a little bit, less nerves, someone that can fit into getting some innings for the Dodgers.
Yeah, absolutely. For a major league debut, it was about what we could have hoped for. You know, he gave up two-run homers. I saw some people say it's just the two bad pitches, and that's not quite right because one of the two-run homers was 2 runs because he walked a guy before it, and the other one was a 2-run homer because he gave up a double before it. So, I mean, there were some hard hit balls besides the homers, a little bit of command stuff. But overall, I mean, 7 base runners in 5 innings, the 4 runs. It was a solid outing. One thing I'm interested to see is his extension is pretty low. Basically means he doesn't stride very far, and so his velocity, his perceived velocity, is actually lower than his actual velocity. Kind of think of Brusdar Graterol a little bit. Maybe not as extreme as Graterol. I don't know if anybody's as extreme as Graterol, who's 102 looks like 96 or whatever. But I'm interested to see how that plays up. Or plays down, I guess. But overall, yeah, like you said, he wasn't necessarily a top prospect. I was telling Pete, I joined Pete on the postcast this afternoon and talking with him, like this wasn't a case of a guy who's been a top prospect and, dominated Double-A and then dominated Triple-A, and now he's here in the big leagues. This was a case of a guy who has pitched well in Double-A this year, made a start or two in Triple-A, and then the Dodgers needed a starter. And so they called on him, and now he's going back to the minors, and he's probably going to spend most or all of the rest of the season in AAA. And that's fine. There's plenty more for him to learn, but having him as a viable option to come up and be a spot starter like this is a big deal. It was, and you definitely can see he got some strikeouts. His stuff is pretty good. So definitely some things to be excited about. Although I wouldn't necessarily count on him for much in 2024.
Well, the spots here and there, and if he does get comfortable, just find a way the Dodgers, don't make the move ever, could pitch some innings for the Dodgers down the line, but we'll see what happens. But anyway, to look like you belong, even though you didn't have the greatest success, is all you can really ask for the first time out. One other left-hander that pitched and hasn't pitched well recently is Ryan Yarbrough. Ryan Yarbrough gave up some runs. He's given up at least 2 runs in the last 2 outings. He's given up runs in 3 of his last 5 outings. And pretty much since June, he's given up runs in every outing except 3. Jeff, it has the magic or whatever you want to call it with Ryan Yarbrough and his slow stuff kind of run out?
For me, it has. You recall, I didn't expect him to be on the roster when the season started, and I kind of bought into the role he plays. And I don't necessarily think he's going to be off the roster anytime soon, but I do think there is very little chance that he is pitching for the Dodgers in October because, you've got starting pitchers who aren't going to have a spot in the starting rotation who can fill that long reliever role. Really, the value that Ryan Yarbrough brings to a team right now is he can pitch multiple innings in relief. Well, if they can get that from Landon Knack or Bobby Miller or Clayton Kershaw or whoever isn't in the starting rotation in October, they potentially could have 2 or 3 solid starting pitchers, much better pitchers than Ryan Yarbrough, available to fill that role. So it's hard to see him today it was good because like I said, their good relievers weren't available today. So yeah, let's have Yarbrough go out there and throw a bunch of pitches and not be very good. And that's okay. But yeah, I feel like Yarbrough is not a guy who really has a place on a World Series championship team, at least in October. But just like Lance Lynn filled his role in the regular season last year, and the problem was that they ended up having to use him in the postseason, Ryan Yarbrough can still fill a role for this Dodgers team in the regular season until they get to the point where the games are too important to use him.
Yeah, he fits. I mean, realistically, we didn't even think he was going to make it out of spring with the Dodgers, just from the simple fact of they had enough starting pitchers, they had enough relievers, and he didn't necessarily have a spot. And then, with injuries and everything else, it worked out, and he had some success early on. Had that same success last year after the Dodgers traded for him, but realistically, not, like you said, not a long-term play or someone that gives you innings in October. It's a guy that gives you innings April to September, and then you say thank you very much and you move on. So the Dodgers had all-stars that announced the rest of the all-stars after Ohtani, the non-starters. There was 6 Dodgers in total that are heading to Texas, or that may be heading to Texas. So we'll get into that, and if anyone else deserved to be on the team. So make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. I love sports. You probably love sports, and we never want them to stop. But as the playoffs have winded down in other sports, we get fewer games, and the sports aren't quite hitting the same as we want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going and lets you keep the sports going whenever we want. All we have to do is open the FanDuel app and dream up any bets anytime you're in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with the booster bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. If you just head over to FanDuel and look at the MLB odds, and you're trying to find something to put for the Dodgers. Now, obviously, they don't have a game on Monday, but you can look ahead and you can check out. I would recommend not putting anything down on the Dodgers to win the NL West. They're currently minus 3,500. That is a huge, huge favorite. You'd have to put down $3,500 just to win $100. I guess if you want to make an extra $100, you can try it out. But if you think the Dodgers can win the National League, they are plus 150. That means if you put down $100, you make an extra 150 on top of that if the Dodgers make it to the World Series. But there's more than just those odds. There's plenty of MLB. There's plenty of women's basketball and other things going on. So make sure to check out FanDuel, the app, and go to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. I want to thank you for being an everydayer. If you are one, that's just someone that listens or watches every day. Remember, you can find Locked On Dodgers wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. And you can go beyond the podcast to become a Locked On Dodgers insider at joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. Joinsubtext.com is just a text subscription service where we provide you with any breaking news, updates, rumors, or just general Dodger thoughts that we come, or even remind you when we're going live on YouTube, or if we have any special episodes or anything like that. Just a few bucks a month, and you can text directly with us. You can also ask us questions or get priority when we have mailbag episodes, which we might have on Monday since for Tuesday's episode, because the Dodgers don't have a game. So make sure to go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers to check that out. All right, Jeff, the Dodgers have 6 all-stars, and we already knew Shohei Ohtani was going to be a starter. Mookie Betts had just got edged out at shortstop, but, good for the one issue you brought up with Mookie was just the career accolades, him being hurt kind of maybe taking away the all-star appearance on his accolades, but he gets in. Teoscar Hernández gets in, Freddie Freeman gets in, Will Smith gets in, and Tyler Glasnow gets in. Now, even with 6 Dodgers in, there might be a couple of guys that could have been deserving to get on the team as well. But what do you think of the Dodgers that did make it?
Yeah, I think absolutely all 6 of those guys deserved it. It's hard to even make a case against any of them, even when you factor in all the guys at the different positions, because Mookie and Ohtani, obvious, Freeman, obvious, especially, we'll see. Bryce Harper's probably going to be back. We'll see if he's going to play in the All-Star game, but, Freeman absolutely deserves it. I guess Glasnow with a couple clunker games, maybe you can make a case against, but not really. Teoscar, I guess strikes out a lot, but also has been really good this year. Will Smith, best catcher in baseball. So yeah, I think the guys who made it are all deserving. Really, the big question is, should there have been 9? Because you can make a good case for Gavin Stone, Alex Vesia, and Evan Phillips too.
Yeah, and those are obviously the names that come up. Gavin Stone for sure, and it's one of those things where 1, 2, 3 of those guys may be named all-stars here in the next week based on pitchers that pitch too close to the game or that decided ultimately not to pitch in the game or whatever the case. But I put out the tweet. The Dodgers dropped the video of Dave Roberts letting everyone know who in the clubhouse who was an all-star. And it was a little bit poetic, I guess, in a sense that in the background of Dave Roberts, you could see Gavin Stone, you could see Evan Phillips for most of the video, and maybe them anticipating that their name may be called ultimately wasn't called. But you got to think, when we're going to get in. But in that process of me kind of tweeting that thought out, there's a few replies, and obviously the accolade and the recognition is huge, but maybe for Dodgers pitchers right now at the moment, it's not the worst thing.
Yeah. And, only they can really know how much rest they need. And the All-Star break is a break. Even if you are on the team, chances are you're going to be throwing a bullpen session during the All-Star break anyway. And so it's not that big a deal to pitch an inning in the All-Star game. For who knows what they will choose to do. I mean, I don't think Phillips will be named to the team, but I wouldn't be surprised if Stone and maybe Vesia do get named to it, and we'll see what they choose to do. But I would guess that both of them, if they did get named to the team, that they would want to pitch in it. But even if not, like once you're named to the team, then you could say, I need the break, and okay, well now you're still an all-star. You still get to put on the jersey, go hang out with the team, and have that whole experience. And forever and ever, your Baseball Reference page will say he was an all-star in 2024. So it's a big deal that I hope that everybody who wants the honor can get it. I think that Gavin Stone absolutely deserves it. He would be the one I'd most go to bat for, because starting pitchers are better and more valuable than relief pitchers. And so I'd go to bat for a guy who has been as good as Stone has been this year.
Yeah, definitely. Now, moving forward, we mentioned Max Muncy earlier being shut down and, not really knowing what's going to pick up. I mean, Max Muncy got hurt in May, and Dave Roberts mentioned that they were hoping, they caught it early, hoping to be back in the 10 days after the IL stint was up. And now it's July 7th, and Max Muncy is not really any much closer to coming back than he was back then. The thing with the oblique is you can't do anything to help it heal faster. And, at this point in the process, like it's one of those where maybe you just shut him down for 6 weeks and hope that it goes away, and then, maybe ramp him back up. But either way, long conversation short is the Dodgers now have a little bit more of a reason to get a bat at the deadline.
Yeah. And the other thing is, it's not just that you can't do anything to make it heal quicker. You don't even have any idea how well it's healing until you go, okay, well, it's been a long time. Let's go try to swing it back. Oh, it still hurts. Like there's no way even to really know how much progress you're making. And so that's the frustrating part. But yeah, like Muncy has reached the point now where I don't think he'll be out for the season, but it's no longer out of the question. And definitely he's out long enough that, I mean, it's not like Muncy was just a natural hitter who could just wake up, roll out of bed, and hit the baseball anyway. I mean, it wouldn't shock me at all if it takes Muncy a month to get back on track. And so if he comes back in mid-September, can we count on him to even be useful in October? And so, yeah, I do think the Dodgers need to look at replacing him, which sucks. And there's different options, different ways to go about that. But yeah, it definitely highlights a need that they have at the trade deadline that, it's always been a possibility, but now it's a little bit more of a reality.
Yeah. Among the other arms, Joe Kelly, Bruce Aguirre, Ryan Brady, like everyone's on their own timelines. Everyone's working toward coming back. But we did get a big update on Clayton Kershaw. He faced hitters at Dodger Stadium over the weekend and may head out on rehab assignment shortly. Dave Roberts mentioned he'd need a couple rehab starts at least before they even thought about, okay, should we bring him back or be on track to bring him back? Obviously, coming off that, he threw one rehab start last time and didn't recover very well, and that's why they had to shut him down. But hopefully this is the time that, okay, he's good now. The last time he was just a little sore from, not pitching and not throwing competitively, and Kershaw can be back on track.
Yeah. And like I said, when they shut him down, it wasn't even really a setback. The reason these timelines exist is because there's a lot of built-in up and down. Okay, oh, let's slow it down. He's, there was always going to be some things like this, and so the fact that he's throwing again now, we'll see how he feels, on Monday or Tuesday, and then do a rehab start, see how it feels after that. I wouldn't be surprised if they have to slow things down again at some point, but I also wouldn't be surprised if he makes 2 or 3 rehab starts and he's back in the Dodgers rotation, available to pitch for them. I know he wants to be back, and I want him to be back to see how he can do. At this point, it doesn't seem likely that he'll be back before the trade deadline. And so as far as it doesn't really change the Dodgers' needs or plans at the trade deadline, but getting Kershaw back could be a really good thing for this Dodgers team, especially, we talk about Glasnow's fatigue and everything. The Dodgers might need to go to a 6-man rotation for real. And having somebody like Kershaw back can definitely help with that approach.
Yeah, at this point, it's just about getting the most healthy arms and getting through the regular season while also building toward October. The other thing, we got an update on Yoshinobu Yamamoto. He's not throwing yet, but he's pain free. So I would imagine, I guess that means the pain wasn't just when he was throwing, which is always interesting as a pitcher. If, I remember I had elbow tendonitis and it literally only hurt when I threw a baseball and didn't hurt anytime else. And, but this injury seemed to maybe have issues with or cause issues for him beyond just throwing a baseball. But either way, no pain is good, but we'll see what the throwing program looks like.
Yeah, and I think I talked a little bit about that on Friday's episode, that, we just have no idea what the Dodgers rotation is going to look like. And so it really does. Actually, I talked with Pete about that a little bit this afternoon too, that the Dodgers absolutely need to go get a starting pitcher or two at the trade deadline, because that may put them in a position where they end up with too many guys to choose from in October. But that's a much better situation to be in than what they were in last year, where it was like, okay, we have an injured Clayton Kershaw and Lance Lynn in our postseason rotation. Much rather have 5 good pitchers to choose from for your 4 starters than to have, 1 good pitcher to choose from for your 4 starters.
Yeah. So let's go in with excess starters rather than what's the opposite of excess.
And then whoever you have extra can just fill Yarborough's role in the bullpen.
Yeah, there you go. All right, Jeff, was there anything else from the weekend or anything I missed?
There's probably a lot more, but like you said, we do have an off day tomorrow. So plenty more to talk about tomorrow with, I don't know, we'll have a mailbag. I'm sure there's a lot of things on a lot of people's minds that we'll get into, but I think we covered the important stuff for the weekend.
Yeah. And the Dodgers head to Philadelphia, that series starting Tuesday. Philly's still the best team in the National League, and we're going to face some good pitching. So it'll be a test for the Dodgers, but the Dodgers have played very well against teams over 500 this year. So maybe that'll continue on. We'll see. But thank you all for listening. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day. Make sure to check us out wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. Make sure to subscribe and get notified when episodes are ready or when we're going live on YouTube. Make sure to tell your friends, family, coworkers, anybody in your life that's a Dodger fan that there's a Dodger podcast for them that goes for 30 minutes every Monday through Friday that can, help up their Dodger knowledge, and maybe you can help us up our Dodger knowledge. Remember, you can go beyond the podcast, become a Locked On Dodgers insider at joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. You can text directly with us, get notified when there's any breaking news or anything of that nature regarding the Dodgers. You can check out Locked On Sports Today or Locked On Sports Los Angeles, 2 24/7 streaming channels from the Locked On Podcast Network. And the Locked On Dodgers postcast is on the Locked On Sports Los Angeles YouTube after most Dodger games going live and on our audio feed. You can find us on social media, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok at Locked On Dodgers. Jeff's on Twitter at Snydog. I'm at Vincent91. You can DM us if you have any questions or comments. You can also send those via email, LockedOnDodgers@gmail.com, or via voicemail text at 323-863-5625. We're here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us. When you get in your car, if you're at home, tell your smart device, play a podcast, Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. Have a good one.
We'll talk to you tomorrow.